A stormy night. Rain poured down in relentless sheets, drumming against Clara Bennett's bedroom window as lightning flashed across the darkened sky. The wind howled, creating a symphony of nature's fury on that stormy night. Clara felt a restless energy beneath her skin, ignited by a combination of excitement and fear as she watched the raindrops race each other down the glass. Her thoughts were of adventure, of secrets hidden in the shadows of the storm. Just as she began to curl up beneath her quilt, aiming to find comfort in its familiar warmth, a sudden heart-wrenching whimper pierced through the chaos outside. Clara's heart leapt in her chest, and curiosity propelled her out of bed. Tiptoeing to the door, she opened it cautiously, letting the dim light of the hallway spill into her cozy room. The whimper grew louder as she stepped onto the porch, the cool breeze wet against her skin. "Hello," she called, her voice barely audible over the storm. As she squinted into the darkness, she caught a glimpse of movement beneath her grandmother's porch, a small, trembling figure crouching low. With trepidation, she approached. As she got closer, her heart softened at the sight of a bedraggled dog, soaked to the bone with matted fur and large, pleading eyes. The animal shivered uncontrollably, towing a sorrowful tale behind it. "Oh, you poor thing," Clara breathed, kneeling down as she extended a hand with gentle warmth. The dog lifted its head, revealing a timid but trusting gaze. It let out another soft whimper, seeming to sense the small girl's compassion. Heart racing with a mix of determination and care, Clara knew she couldn't leave him out in the storm. "Come on, let's get you inside," she urged, her voice soothing like a warm blanket. Unsure but desperate for safety, the scruffy dog hesitated only for a moment before inching forward. Clara welcomed him into her home, her heart swelling with a sense of purpose. Inside, she toweled him off gently, and as she wrapped him in a soft blanket, he let out a contented sigh. "You'll be okay now," she whispered, feeling an immediate connection. "I promise I'll take care of you." With soft hands, she rummaged through the kitchen for a bowl and filled it with water. As the dog drank, a curious sparkle lit up his amber eyes. Clara grinned in delight. "What should I call you?" she mused aloud, thinking of names that would do justice to the scruffy little creature before her. As they settled on the couch, the warmth of companionship enveloping them, Clara noticed a patch of white fur shaped like a heart on the dog's chest. "Charlie," she exclaimed with joy. "Charlie it is." The name felt right, and a bond began to form, a bond that would entwine their hearts. The storm continued to rage, but inside the Bennett home, the atmosphere was illuminated by Clara's enthusiasm and Charlie's growing sense of safety. Against the backdrop of thunder, they shared the simple moment of warmth and belonging. Charlie snuggled close, feeling the girl's compassion seep into his bones. Clara, nestled into her quilt with Charlie at her side, felt more at home than ever. The storm outside became a distant memory as her heart expanded with love and promise for the extraordinary day that lay ahead. She couldn't have known that this moment was the beginning of a journey that would challenge both her resilience and the very fabric of her understanding of loyalty and friendship. As sleep began to envelop her, Clara whispered her dreams into the darkness. "Together, we'll explore the world, Charlie," she vowed softly. Little did she know, Charlie held secrets of his own. Secrets that would soon test their bond and illuminate their shared paths in ways they never imagined. An unexpected friendship. The first rays of morning sunshine filtered through Clara's bedroom window, casting a warm glow that chased away the remnants of last night's storm. Blinking sleep from her eyes, Clara turned to see Charlie still curled up at her feet, breathing softly. A smile spread across her face as memories of their cozy night together washed over her. "Good morning, Charlie," she chirped, sitting up and stretching her arms wide, careful not to disturb him. The dog stirred at the sound of her voice, his ears perked up, revealing a flicker of curiosity in those warm amber eyes. After a quick breakfast of buttered toast and jam, Clara prepared for an adventure. Her spirits buoyed by the promise of a day filled with new discoveries alongside her newfound companion. She grabbed a pair of worn-out sneakers and slipped a leash over Charlie's head, who seemed surprisingly willing, his tail wagging eagerly as he trotted out the door beside her. The world outside was washed clean from the storm, each leaf glistening and vibrant, alive with the sounds of chirping birds and playful squirrels. Clara felt a spark of excitement, but it was different this time. It was imbued with the joy of sharing her beloved home with Charlie. "Let's explore," she declared, taking the lead as they set off along their usual path to the old oak tree, the massive sentinel that stood proudly at the edge of her family's farm, a spot where Clara had played for as long as she could remember. But as they approached the tree, Clara urged Charlie to find his spirit. "Show me how brave you are, Charlie," she laughed, and he seemed to rise to the challenge, barking enthusiastically as he playfully bounded ahead to chase a fluttering butterfly. Clara's laughter filled the air, a sound she hadn't realized she had missed so deeply until now. They spent the morning running and playing among the tall grass, Clara teaching Charlie how to fetch sticks and inviting him into her imagined world of adventures where they could battle fierce dragons and discover hidden treasure in the woods. With each passing moment, the bond between them deepened. Clara felt a sense of purpose in caring for Charlie, while he reveled in the warmth of her unwavering affection. As noon approached, Clara's stomach growled, and they returned to the house. She filled a bowl with water for Charlie and set out a simple lunch of sandwiches for herself, pleased that her two companions, Charlie and her lunch, were both content. As they sat on the front porch, she reminisced about her summer dreams spilling out like marbles rolling from her pocket. "Next summer, I want to have a picnic right here, under the oak," she shared with Charlie, who cocked his head as if he understood. "Fresh fruit, sandwiches, maybe some lemonade. We could invite Edie." Charlie gave a soft huff, as though he approved of the delicious plans, and as they settled into their post-lunch nap, Clara found herself pondering how wonderfully unpredictable life could be. Later, Clara and Charlie wandered down the path that led to the village, so full of life and gossip. "I wonder what Mrs. Peabody is up to today," Clara mused with a smile, knowing that the village's favorite chatterbox would soon be an integral part of their lives. "Maybe we'll find out something exciting about your past." Charlie's ears perked up at the sound of a dog barking in the distance, and Clara giggled as he tugged on the leash, eager to chase after the sound. Their adventure soon brought them to the village market, bustling with activity. Vendors shouted cheerfully, selling their fresh produce and baked goods, and the aroma of warm bread wafted through the air. "Stick close to me, buddy," Clara advised Charlie, who looked overwhelmed by the cacophony of sounds. "Let's go say hi to Mrs. Peabody first." They found Mrs. Peabody standing at her stall, arranging colorful flowers. Her eyes lit up when she spotted Clara. "Well, hello there, my dear. And who is this delightful creature with you?" she asked, her voice dripping with enthusiasm. "This is Charlie." Clara beamed, proud to introduce her new friend. Mrs. Peabody leaned down, her gaze softened with kindness as she met Charlie's curious eyes. "Ah, a charming name for an equally charming dog. I've heard tales of a recent storm and how you've taken him in. You're simply a sweetheart for doing so, Clara." Clara felt warmth spreading in her chest, fueled by Mrs. Peabody's words. "He's been a really good friend to me already," she replied, feeling the weight of their bond deepen within her. But as the day wore on, Clara found herself navigating a blend of curiosity and concern as whispers erupted around the market about the new arrival. Gossips began to swirl, some hushed comments about how Charlie must have strayed from a cruel owner, filaments of doubt knitting tighter around her heart. "There's something about that dog we should watch, Clara," Mrs. Peabody warned, her motherly tone tempered with a hint of seriousness. Clara nodded, absorbing the words but unwilling to let fear overshadow Charlie's spirit. "Don't you worry, Mrs. Peabody. He's just a dog, and he's just trying to be my friends." As the afternoon sun cast long shadows upon the ground, Clara realized that her bond with Charlie was far stronger than any rumor could shake. With a heart full of determination and spirit, she knew they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, their unexpected friendship forged upon the belief that love could conquer even the darkest of pasts. Whispers from the past. The sun sprinkled golden light through the open window of Clara's room, illuminating the scene of her new life with Charlie. The dog had quickly become a bright star in her everyday routines, yet a chill of trepidation lingered, stemming from the whispers she'd overheard at the market. Clara's heart ached with uncertainty as she contemplated the shadows lurking in Charlie's past. What if the tales of his origins held truths that could harm her, or worse, cost her the newfound friendship? Determined to show Charlie all the joys that life offered, Clara planned a day filled with activities that would distract her from fading worries. She slipped on her favorite sun hat, then attached the leash to Charlie's collar before bounding down the stairs with a flourish of excitement. "Let's take a walk to the pond," she exclaimed, gesturing as if it were the grandest of invitations. Charlie barked in response, his tail wagging vigorously. The walk was laced with laughter and innocent banter, Clara chatting like a friend telling tales of far-off lands, while Charlie dutifully listened, occasionally stopping to sniff the grass or chase after a butterfly. The world felt enchanted, filled with warmth and light, allowing Clara to forget the foreboding words from Mrs. Peabody. But the moment they reached the pond, a peculiar tension prickled in the air. Clara felt it before she could voice it. Maybe Charlie sensed it, too, as he rested his head on her lap, clearly affected by the shift. The pond, once the site for Clara's jubilant dreams, now transformed into a cauldron of anxiety. Just ahead, a group of children from her school played along the water's edge, their laughter echoing through the silence. Clara tried to ignore them but was caught off guard as one of the boys, Marcus, broke from the group and approached her. "Why do you have that dog?" he asked, a smirk dancing on his lips. "Is he even yours?" Clara felt her cheeks flush in response. "Of course he is. His name is Charlie," she shot back, her voice firm, even as doubt crept into her heart. "Oh yeah," Marcus replied with a flick of his wrist dismissively. "I've heard that dog was a stray. Bet he belongs to some old crook. You should be careful." His laughter rang in Clara's ears like mocking chimes as he retreated back to a throng of friends, whispering half-truths that hung like cobwebs. Charlie raised his head, sensing her tension, and nuzzled against her with sympathetic reassurance. Instead of taking Marcus' words to heart, Clara wrapped her arms around Charlie, the warmth of his fur a soothing balm. "We'll show them," she declared, finding her resolve again, turning her back to the whispers. With renewed determination, Clara conjured a game to distract both Charlie and herself. They tossed rocks into the pond, watching as the ripples danced across the water's surface. In her reverie, Clara spoke of the adventures they could have, sharing dreams of hiking through the forests that surrounded Willowbrook. Yet as the hours slipped by, her earlier optimism dimmed once again. What if Marcus was right? What if Charlie's past truly was tied to someone unkind? The next morning, Clara rose early, her mind oscillating between worry and determination. She decided that she couldn't hide from the truth any longer. She needed to find out more about Charlie's past, more than the rumors that plagued her thoughts. After breakfast, she approached Edie, hoping her grandmother would have answers. "Edie, have you seen anything strange about Charlie?" she asked cautiously. Edie peered at her, curiosity etched on her thoughtful face. "Why do you ask, dear?" Edie inquired, her eyes glinting with a mix of concern and interest. "I've heard whispers. They say he's a stray, that he had a bad owner before. I want to know if it's true," Clara confessed, her heart lingering on the edge of doubt. Edie sighed, settling into her chair with a knowing expression. "Sometimes, my dear, dogs carry their burdens in silence. Charlie may have had a rocky past, but love and loyalty can heal those wounds. You must give him the chance to show who he truly is." Clara nodded but felt a burgeoning fear. "But how can I know? What if he hurts me? What if—" "Clara," Edie interrupted gently, "you have to trust your heart. Just like people, animals tend to mirror their surroundings. With your love and kindness, Charlie will blossom, I believe it's." With Edie's words lingering in her mind, Clara resolved to give Charlie that chance, even if it meant facing the deeper fears that churned within her. That afternoon, she decided they would take a stroll back through the village, armed with hope and determination. However, as they walked along the narrow streets, their senses warming with familiar scents of baked goods and laughter, Clara felt a shift in the air once more. The shadows of doubt resurfaced, twisting alongside excitement. They made their way past Mrs. Peabody's cottage, and Clara caught sight of the old woman crouched beside her flower bed, pruning the blossoms. "Clara, you've come to visit again," Mrs. Peabody called, standing with a bright smile. "Of course. This is Charlie," Clara responded, pointing to her four-legged friend, who was sniffing excitedly at a nearby bush. Mrs. Peabody's eyes narrowed slightly as she regarded Charlie. "Just remember, dear, sometimes we may not see the dark past written in their eyes. Be cautious." Clara felt a pang in her chest as the whispers echoed within. "He's my friend, Mrs. Peabody," she replied earnestly, almost pleading for understanding. Mrs. Peabody's expression softened. "Very well, Clara. Love is a powerful thing. Just be mindful." As they walked away, Clara clenched her jaw, determined to make the bond between her and Charlie as strong as the roots of the old oak tree back home. But doubts lingered. Could she truly grasp the truth of the past? That night, the storm of uncertainty brewed within her, threatening her budding bond with Charlie. Clara knew she had to confront whatever lay hidden under the surface. As Charlie snuggled beside her that evening, Clara rested her hand on his soft coat. She whispered her fears into the darkness, the moonlight shining through her window. "No matter what happens, I promise to stand by you." In that moment, they shared an understanding. A vow to explore the beauty of trust together, no matter where the road would lead. The old oak's secrets. The following morning dawned bright and clear, a sharp contrast to the stormy night when Clara had rescued Charlie. The sun hung high in the sky, illuminating the landscape and beckoning Clara and Charlie outdoors like an unspoken promise of adventure. Clara donned her favorite sundress, the one adorned with tiny daisies, a reminder of spring's arrival, and fastened a gentle leash around Charlie's neck, ready for a journey to their cherished oak tree. As they walked through the fields, Clara felt her mind drift to the whispers that surrounded Charlie. What secrets lay beneath his scruffy exterior? With each step, she became more curious about the hidden stories he carried, wondering if the old oak would provide her answers. The oak tree stood as a monument at the edge of the property, its broad branches reaching toward the sky, silhouetted against the vivid blue. It had been Clara's refuge throughout her childhood, a steadfast companion during moments of isolation and joy alike. However, today felt different. The air seemed charged with a deeper energy. "Let's sit for a while, Charlie," Clara announced, leading him to their favorite patch of grass beneath the tree's expansive canopy. She sank down, leaning against the ancient bark, and smiled as Charlie plopped beside her, resting his head on her knee. It felt right to have him there, but beneath the contentment lurked questions that refused to fade. Closing her eyes for a moment, Clara allowed the tranquility of nature to wash over her. The gentle rustle of leaves mingled with the distant sounds of birds singing, a symphony she cherished. "You know, Charlie," she murmured, stroking his fur absent-mindedly, "this tree has seen so much. I wonder what stories it holds. Maybe we can uncover some soon, our own secrets." Suddenly, Clara's train of thought shifted back to her concern. She needed to confront the rumors that haunted her. Standing tall and assertive, she began to scribble on a small pad of paper, jotting down thoughts and ideas for a plan. "What if we talk to Mrs. Peabody?" she suggested out loud to Charlie, who tilted his head in a gesture of comprehension. "She does know a lot about the village and its pasts." They sat in reflective silence, letting the idea blossom between them. Clara felt a renewed determination, ready to embrace whatever truths lay ahead for both her and Charlie. Yet something still tugged at her, a gnawing curiosity about the oak itself. Standing back up, she approached the tree and brushed her fingers along the textured bark, feeling its ancient strength. Nearby, she spotted an oddly shaped hollow beneath the roots. Intrigued, Clara knelt down beside it and brushed away the leaves and dirt that had settled over the entrance. With a little more digging, she uncovered a wooden box, its surface warped and splashed with color from the elements. "Look at this, Charlie!" Clara exclaimed, unable to contain her excitement. With trembling hands, she pried it open, revealing an assortment of small trinkets, buttons, pieces of ribbon, and even a silver locket nestled amongst the finds. Clara's eyes sparkled as she sifted through the items, discovering each piece held a story waiting to be uncovered. "Someone must have left these here long ago," she pondered. "Maybe they wanted to keep their memories hidden." Clara carefully lifted the silver locket. It was ornate and beautiful, but the clasp was brittle and corroded with time. "What do you think, Charlie? Should we find out who it belonged to?" Charlie lifted his head, barking softly as if to encourage her on this newfound quest. Thrumming with excitement, Clara decided she wouldn't rest until she unraveled the mystery of the old oak and its hidden treasures. Over the next hour, she examined each item, matching them with the memories they conjured in her mind. Her focus soon shifted to the locket. It was the pearly glow of nostalgia partnered with a hint of sadness that tugged her heartstrings. Clara gingerly opened it, expecting perhaps a painting or photo within. Instead, she found a small piece of folded paper. Tentatively, Clara pulled out the tiny note and unfolded it, revealing a faded message. Asterisk, to the heart that remembers, may you carry your loved ones wherever you go. Star. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she read the words. Well, that's sweet, she whispered, feeling the poignant weight of the sentiment. But who had left this? And why? At that moment, a rush of laughter interrupted her contemplative silence. Clara turned to see a group of children from the village strolling down the path, waving at her playfully. Among the group was Marcus, flashing a cheeky grin. "What are you doing with a bunch of junk?" he called out, gesturing dismissively at the relics scattered beside her. "Hey, these are treasures," Clara shot back, rising to her feet. "You don't know the stories behind them." The teasing continued, but Clara felt her frustration building. Yet suddenly, in the midst of Marcus's laughter, she caught a glimpse of Charlie's determined demeanor. He stood at her side, eyes bright and fierce. Clara drew strength from him, the realization dawning upon her. She had to stand tall not just for herself, but for the truths she was beginning to uncover. "Just because you don't understand doesn't make it any less valuable," Clara replied, voice steady. "These were left by someone special." The laughter fizzled as confusion flickered in Marcus's eyes, and Clara saw a glimmer of curiosity present beneath the teasing exterior. But before she could elaborate, one of the other children chimed in. "What's in that locket?" Clara paused, contemplating whether to share the sentiment. "It says, 'To the heart that remembers,'" she began, her voice gentle yet full of meaning. "It's a reminder that the stories we carry shape who we are, don't you think?" For a moment, silence enveloped the group, and Clara felt the solid weight of her words settle around them. She could sense that even Marcus, despite his teasing nature, had allowed the honesty to penetrate his defenses. As the group dispersed, Clara realized that the buzz of gossip about Charlie and the whispers clinging to his past wouldn't easily disappear. But the events of the day had propelled her one step closer to the truth. Charlie also sensed the victory in Clara's heart, nudging her affectionately as they returned to their spot beneath the old oak tree. Reinvigorated, Clara settled back beside him, the locket clutched in her palm. They were partners in this journey, two souls bound by love and resilience, ready to confront whatever might lie ahead. With each heartbeat against the ancient oak, she understood that uncovering secrets did not solely pertain to Charlie. It was about her own journey too, one rooted in courage, empathy, and the strength of cherished memories. "Together, we'll discover who you really are, Charlie," Clara whispered to her companion, the oath bolstering their bond as the old oak continued to stand watch over them, keeping its own secrets close to its weathered heart. The turning tide. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting shades of orange and pink across the Willowbrook skyline. Clara sat on the porch steps, Charlie nestled by her side, feeling a mix of contentment and lingering unease. The events from the past few days played on repeat in her mind. The rumors, the mockery from her peers, and the weight of Charlie's unknown past hung like a dark cloud over her heart. Today had been especially difficult, as Clara had faced Marcus again, his smirking taunts echoing through her thoughts. He had rallied a small group to question her, framing their mischief as playful curiosity, yet it left her feeling more isolated than ever. She hated the feeling that came from wanting to protect Charlie but facing ridicule instead. Just then, Clara's mother, Lila, stepped out onto the porch, her warm smile instantly soothing Clara's worries. "Hey there, sweetheart," she said, sinking down beside Clara and scratching Charlie behind his ears. "What's got you so pensive?" "Just thinking about Charlie," Clara replied, fighting to keep her tone light. "I want everyone to see him for the good dog he is. I hate that people think he's troubled." "People can be quick to judge," Lila acknowledged, resting her arm around Clara's shoulders. "But I've always believed that it takes time and trust to change hearts. You're already doing that just by being his friends." As Clara leaned into her mother's warmth, she felt a surge of hope, but it was fraught with uncertainty. "What if they never see him the way I do?" Clara whispered, her voice heavy with emotion. Her mother's gaze softened. "You keep being you, Clara. Your love and kindness will shine through, and slowly, others will see it too, just like you do." As evening settled in, Clara felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. She stood up, brushing dust from her skirt. I think I'll take Charlie on a walk. I want to explore the fields and get away from all the noise. Just be careful, dear, Lila called after her, a hint of worry painting her words. Clara nodded quietly, leading Charlie down the path that wound through the fields gilded in the waning sunlight. The air was filled with the scents of grass and wildflowers, and for a moment, Clara allowed herself to breathe and listen to the world around her. They strolled side by side, the rhythm of their steps synchronizing in a gentle dance, the warm breeze nudging them forward. Clara felt a sense of freedom envelop her, a temporary escape from the tug-of-war in her heart. As they wandered deeper into the fields, pursuing the ethereal glow of fireflies, an idea crossed her mind. What if we show everyone what a good boy you are, Charlie? Clara proposed, invigorated. We can organize a little get-together at the park. We could invite friends, and I'll show everyone how much fun we have together. It'll be our little adventure to change their minds. Charlie barked with enthusiasm, bounding ahead with newfound energy, as if sensing the thrill of the mission. Clara laughed, her heart swelling with optimism. They continued meandering until they reached a small clearing, where the glow of dusk settled upon them like a soft blanket. Sitting on the soft grass, Clara squared her gaze on Charlie. "All right, let's practice some tricks," she challenged, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. They began with simple commands: sit, stay, and paw, each met with a wagging tail and playful spirit. Clara felt herself lost in delight, immersed in the shared joy of teaching. Just as she executed a particularly challenging trick, she heard a murmur in the distance. Clara turned to see Marcus and a small group of children from the village crossing the field towards her, laughter spilling from their lips like music. Clara's cheeks flushed with a mix of apprehension and excitement. She gathered the courage to stand as they approached, determined not to let their presence falter her joy. "What do you want?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. Marcus stepped forward, his earlier teasing expression absent, replaced by a hint of genuine curiosity. "We came to see what you're doing," he admitted, scratching his head in a gesture that made Clara soften just a little. "We heard you were training your dog, and some of us wanted to try too." Clara's heart raced, and for a moment, she considered dismissing them. But then, she caught Charlie's hopeful gaze, full of love and trust. She wanted to believe in the power of connection, the idea that they could change perceptions through shared experiences. "Okay," Clara said, offering an inviting smile. "Why don't you guys join us? Charlie would love some new friends." They looked surprised but delighted, rushing over as Clara directed their attention toward Charlie. With confidence building within her, she demonstrated his tricks, cheering as he executed each move flawlessly, his joyful demeanor infectious. As the group joined in, laughing and clapping, Clara felt like a bridge between worlds, the warmth of acceptance pouring in. She encouraged the children to take turns giving Charlie treats and practicing simple commands. It felt as though the atmosphere lightened, lifting curtains of misunderstanding and curiosity. With each passing moment, Clara watched the tide shift. It was as if the laughter of children was washing away the whispers of the past, making room for a shared appreciation of Charlie, a recognition of the love that Clara had for him. As stars began to twinkle overhead, Clara felt a rush of triumph. The children were bonding not just with Charlie, but with her. "Maybe," she whispered to Charlie, "this is how we can change their hearts." Marcus even took the time to scratch Charlie's ear, laughing as he said, "I guess he's kinda cool after all." That was it, the turning tide Clara had yearned for, the night filling with new beginnings and promises of friendship. Clara breathed in deeply, allowing the warmth of acceptance to wash over her. Under the vast sky, full of stars and newfound connections, Clara believed that together they could break the walls forged by fear, brick by brick. And as laughter echoed in the cooling evening air, Clara recognized that love and trust had woven a beautiful tapestry of unity and understanding, sparkling like the constellations above her head, guiding them to brighter days ahead. Mrs. Peabody's shadows. As the sun rose on a new day, Clara felt a flicker of excitement flicker in her chest. The celebration of Charlie's newfound acceptance yesterday had ignited a fire in her spirit, urging her to share her joy with everyone in the village. The laughter of kids echoing in the fields was like a memory she wanted to solidify into a tradition. There was still work to be done though, and the lingering presence of Mrs. Peabody loomed in her mind like a specter. After breakfast, Clara decided to pay Mrs. Peabody a visit, hoping to soften the older woman's skepticism toward Charlie and perhaps earn her friendship. Clara knew that Mrs. Peabody, a fixture in Willowbrook, had deep roots in the village. Her extensive knowledge of its history and people often came wrapped in a tapestry of warnings, but Clara hoped to uncover the heart hidden beneath her sharp exterior. As she walked toward Mrs. Peabody's cottage, Clara felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The cottage stood at the far edge of the village, adorned with delightful garden gnomes and an unruly collection of flowers bursting in every direction. Mrs. Peabody was its reigning monarch, a caretaker in her own right. Clara knocked lightly on the door, her heart racing. Moments later, it swung open to reveal Mrs. Peabody, framed in the doorway with her arms crossed and an expression of mild surprise on her face. "Clara Bennett," she said, her tone slightly warmer than their last encounter. "What brings you to my humble abode?" "I came to talk, Mrs. Peabody." "About Charlie," Clara replied, summoning her most earnest smile. "I know you're wary of him, but he's really a good dog." Mrs. Peabody's eyes narrowed slightly, and Clara felt her resolve waver. "I've seen countless dogs come and go, Clara. Many have good beginnings but paths that lead to darker places. I simply urge you to be cautious." "We're not just a boy and his dog," Clara insisted, buoyed by the memory of laughter from the previous evening. "He's my friend. He's loyal, gentle, and he loves to play with the children. You saw for yourself." With every word, Clara hoped to chip away at the barriers Mrs. Peabody had built around her heart. As if hearing Clara's thoughts, Charlie nudged against her leg, the warm pressure of his body grounding her. Mrs. Peabody's expression softened slightly, and Clara seized the moment. "Can I show you?" she suggested eagerly. "Come with me to the park for a little while. I promise Charlie will amaze you." "Me?" Mrs. Peabody scoffed, but Clara could see the twinkle of intrigue behind her guarded demeanor. "Yes, you," Clara insisted. "Spend just a little time with us. You might discover he's not quite what you expect." With the weight of uncertainty teetering on her shoulders, Mrs. Peabody sighed, her hard exterior wavering. After a moment of consideration, she relented. "Fine, but I am not responsible for any mischief that dog might cause," she said with a cedar firmness that Clara had come to recognize. Studio portraits of the past hung in the air as Clara and Mrs. Peabody strolled together through town. The chatter of villagers filled the streets, but Mrs. Peabody walked with an air of her own, a shadow that hung around her, layering the atmosphere in quietude. When they reached the park, Clara felt giddy with anticipation as children from the village waved. "Look, it's Clara," one shouted, followed by echoes of cheers as Charlie pranced in front of them. This was the moment she'd imagined, the chance to draw Mrs. Peabody from her rigid shell. "Charlie, show everyone how well you can catch," Clara called excitedly, tossing a treat high into the air. With eagerness unmatched, Charlie leaped and snagged it mid-flight, the delighted roars of laughter erupting around them. Even Mrs. Peabody's lips quirked upward in faint amusement, a soft crack in her formidable shell. As more children joined in, the air filled with giggles and applause, and Clara watched with admiration as Charlie reveled in his role, adjusting effortlessly to the excitement. But even in all that joy, Clara became acutely aware of Mrs. Peabody's silence. "Do you have any pets, Mrs. Peabody?" Clara ventured, stepping closer to her. "Just me and my flowers," the old woman replied, her tone absent. "You must understand, Clara, my world is quiet. I've seen too many friends let down by living creatures. Sometimes they just need a chance," Clara replied gently. "I used to be lonely, but Charlie has brought out something in me." Mrs. Peabody's gaze flickered, the shadows of her past briefly illuminated. "I had a dog once," she admitted, her voice softer, reflecting on a long-buried memory. "He was my confidant, an unwavering companion. But he was taken from me through carelessness. You see, Clara, every creature carries a past, and it's not always a peaceful one." Clara felt the weight of those words seep into her. "What happened?" she asked, prompting Mrs. Peabody to share. "He belonged to another time," she continued, reminiscing. "A time when my heart felt full and my joy unwavering. But as life changed, I lost him, and with him, the spirit of adventure I once held. The truth of the shadows that danced behind Mrs. Peabody began to unveil itself. Clara understood at that moment that even someone as gruff as Mrs. Peabody needed compassion, just like Charlie. Maybe Charlie can help bring back that spirit, Clara suggested. He's got a big heart. Mrs. Peabody watched as Charlie bounded through the grass, joy radiant in every leap. Slowly, she unfolded her arms, revealing a softening in her posture. The laughter of children echoed around them, and Clara hoped this moment might weave a thread through Mrs. Peabody's guarded heart. For a brief heartbeat in time, hope and vulnerability danced in the air, and Clara sensed that Mrs. Peabody was on the cusp of change. As laughter filled the space between them, the shadows that once clouded Mrs. Peabody's heart began to recede like morning mist. Perhaps today would herald the start of a new chapter, where once silent voices learned to speak again. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, bathed in the golden light, Clara firmly believed that even the heaviest shadows could be lifted in the warmth of friendship, compassion, and a little four-legged friend who had the power to unite the fractured with the golden threads of love. A heart divided. The days following the gathering at the park brought a sense of renewal and hope as Clara watched the connections between Charlie and the village deepen. Laughter echoed in the warm air, and children sought Charlie out just to spend time with him, something her heart had longed to see. However, amidst the blooming joy, another shadow started to creep into Clara's life, a creeping darkness she had desperately tried to avoid, the gossip and whispers of Charlie's past. Clara had overheard the villagers discussing the unfolding friendship between her and Charlie, their excitement mixed with doubt. One afternoon, as she skated through the village with Charlie at her side, Clara caught a snippet of conversation that made her stomach twist painfully. "In the end, he's still a stray, isn't he?" one woman remarked, a tinge of disapproval threading her words. "You never know what's lurking in the heart of a dog." Clara's heart sank, and she felt as if the ground might swallow her whole. She wanted desperately to stand up for Charlie, to say that he was more than just a label. But the hurtful words settled heavily over her, casting trepidation on her spirit. She shook her head, attempting to rid herself of the negativity, but how could she protect Charlie when doubts began to creep into her own heart? That evening, she climbed the old oak's massive trunk with Charlie just behind her, seeking refuge in their favorite spot. The powerful presence of the tree filled her with calm, yet the doubts lingered like mist in the air. "What if they're right, Charlie?" she mused aloud, her voice small against the rustling leaves. "What if something bad happens because I chose you?" Charlie nudged around her, resting his head on her lap as if sensing her turmoil. The warmth of his presence provided some comfort, yet Clara felt more confused than ever. Each day had been brightened by Charlie's light, yet uncertainty now followed close behind, casting long shadows over her thoughts. A few days later, the village prepared for its annual festival, an occasion filled with joy, lights, and laughter. Clara's heart ached with longing for Charlie to be accepted, but she also felt the weight of her other friendships. At school, her classmates were abuzz with preparations for the festivities ahead, but Clara hovered in the margins, her heart divided between her friends and the fear of what Charlie's past might bring. On the day of the festival, Clara had convinced her parents to let her take Charlie along. "It'll be fun," she declared, a mixture of excitement and anxiety swelling within her. She envisioned a tapestry of joyful moments, where everyone sang praises of Charlie, their disbelief turned to affection. But as they entered the village square, she felt herself bracing for conflict. The venue was embellished with dazzling lights and colorful decorations. Families set up picnic tables, and laughter echoed in the air. Clara spotted her classmates weaving through the crowd, her heart fluttering with nervous anticipation. She hoped their hearts would be as open as the sky above. "Hey Clara," one of her friends called out, waving enthusiastically. Clara's face brightened, but as she scanned the area, her smile faltered when she noticed Marcus in the distance, speaking with a small group of kids, an unfamiliar dog bounding around their feet. "Oh," Clara whispered to Charlie, who looked up at her with innocent eyes, his tail wagging without a care in the world. "I hope this doesn't end in chaos." As they approached the group, Marcus lifted the unfamiliar dog, his voice dripping with mockery. "Look everyone, a real dog, that one isn't even a stray." He laughed, gesturing towards the pup, its coat sleek and polished. "Maybe you should consider switching back to a real companion." A girl chimed in, laughter bubbling in the air. Clara felt the heat flush her cheeks as whispers swept through the crowd. "Why are you always defending that mutt?" Marcus taunted, aiming his words directly at her. "He's a stray, a nobody's." A familiar ache surfaced in Clara's chest, and she stepped forward, determined to defend Charlie. "He's not a nobody. Charlie has changed my life. He's my friend." Her voice wavered but held an edge of raw conviction. A tense silence fell over the group, eyes darting between Clara and Marcus. "Oh, really? Friends with a stray? What do you know about him?" Marcus sneered, and a storm began to form around the interactions. Clara's heart raced as doubt clouded her thoughts. What if he's never gonna be accepted? What if it hurts my friendship with everyone, she thought. The internal battle raised waves of indignation, pitted against shaky fear. "Clara, can't you see he'll just bring you trouble?" Marcus pushed further. Clara caught the whispers of approving agreement from a few lingering classmates. As she cornered herself into uncertainty, Charlie broke free, moving closer to the group of kids, nuzzling into the unfamiliar dog curiously. Clara's heart dropped at the sight. "Charlie, no," she yelled, tense with anxiety. But Charlie remained, oblivious to the turning tide of the atmosphere. In that moment, the rift pulled wider as Clara sensed her heart shred further, torn between taking a stand and protecting her loyal companion. Just then, Mrs. Peabody emerged through the throngs toward them, her imposing figure commanding the air of authority around her as she approached Clara. "What's all this commotion?" she inquired, her gaze sweeping across the participants and settling on Marcus. "Clara thinks that Stray is worth her time," Marcus proclaimed, chuckling derisively. Mrs. Peabody's eyes narrowed, and she leveled one finger at Marcus. "Do you know why loyalty and trust are valuable, child? Relationships don't end because of labels. If Clara believes in Charlie, perhaps she's wiser than you realize." The weight of Mrs. Peabody's words reverberated through the square, striking a chord with the nearby crowd. Clara felt a swell of gratitude toward the woman's fierce defense that brought clarity. But the scrutiny was still there. As Marcus and his friends huddled half-heartedly, Clara's heart felt ready to burst. She stood there, caught between two worlds she cherished: her love for Charlie and the friendships she desperately wanted to keep intact. With a final look at Charlie, standing loyal, pure-hearted, and free of judgment, Clara resolved to stay true to her feelings. "You can choose to judge me, but I know the truth of who Charlie is in my heart," she declared passionately, her voice strong amidst the uncertainty. As whispers simmered around her, Clara understood that the choice ahead, as tumultuous as it felt, would ultimately shape her. She had to embrace the loyalty she felt for her friend, no matter what shadows threatened to sever her ties. And though she stood with a heart divided, she silently vowed to protect the love she had found with Charlie, no matter the ordeal that lay ahead. The healing touch. The vibrant colors of the festival were fading, and with it, Clara's spirits weighed heavy. The throngs of laughter and joy that had surrounded her seemed to evaporate into the distance, leaving an uncomfortable emptiness in their wake. Clara felt the simmering tension between her friendships and her devotion to Charlie churn within, as the echoes of Marcus's words lingered like an unwelcome specter. In the days that followed, Clara's heart felt like a tumultuous ocean, the waves of uncertainty crashing against her resolve. Despite her best efforts to keep moving forward, it was as if the shadows of doubt had found a way to creep into the crevices of her mind. She wanted fiercely to protect Charlie, to show everyone the goodness that slept within him, yet her heart was battered by her peers' skepticism. One afternoon, as Clara and Charlie meandered through the village, Clara's footsteps became heavier with each step, her mind clouded with conflicting thoughts. The sun hung high, casting its golden rays, yet Clara could hardly feel its warmth. Determined to clear her mind, Clara decided they would visit the Whispering Woods, an enchanting place she had cherished since childhood where she believed nature held a special magic. She needed to feel grounded again, away from the weight of the village's opinions. As they stepped into the woods, Clara reveled in the familiar sights and sounds. The leaves swaying gently overhead, the light filtering through the branches, and the soft whispering of the wind. It felt like a world apart, a sanctuary that held countless mysteries. "Let's sit here for a while, Charlie," she said, leading him to a cozy nook under an expansive tree, its roots curling around as if cradling the earth. She sank down onto the cool grass, taking a deep breath and letting the tranquility wash over her. Charlie settled beside her, instinctively leaning into her. The gentle pressure brought a faint smile to Clara's lips. "You know, sometimes I wish I could understand what you're feeling," she murmured. "You've brought so much light and joy to my life, and I'm struggling to give you the same in returns." As if sensing her turmoil, Charlie nudged her shoulder with his head, offering silent reassurance. Clara's heart swelled, reminded again that his warmth and loyalty were like a balm on her spirit. In quiet reflection, she thought of Mrs. Peabody's stern yet thoughtful face the day of the festival. The older woman had opened a door to Clara's strength, but Clara had yet to truly embrace it herself. Frustration bubbled within, as she felt divided between caring for her own feelings and defending her steadfast friend. Just then, Clara noticed a glimmer of color beneath the roots of the tree, something hidden in the shadows. Curiosity piqued, she leaned down to investigate. As she pulled away the sticks and dirt, she discovered a small, intricately painted stone with the word hope etched across its surface. It was crafted with care, and its vibrant colors seemed to ripple with life. "Hope," Clara whispered, holding the stone delicately in the palm of her hand. "Maybe I need to remember this. I can still hope for Charlie and for our friendships." Charlie seemed to sense the significance of the stone, plopping down beside her, his warm presence encompassing her like a gentle hug. With a newfound spark in her heart, Clara decided to use the stone as a profound reminder that day. Holding Charlie close, she began to formulate a plan that could help turn the tide with her friendships. A day of friendship at the park. Clara envisioned inviting everyone to a simple picnic, a chance to share laughter and stories while highlighting how wonderful Charlie truly was. She imagined the joy of seeing Charlie play, bringing smiles and perhaps even shifting perceptions. With determination swirling within her, Clara resolved to talk to her friends at school the very next day. She would explain her vision for the picnic, framed with the hope the painted stone had gifted her. One way or another, she would show them the love and joy that Charlie brought to her world. The following morning arrived with a renewed sense of purpose as Clara approached school, invigorated by the possibilities ahead. She envisioned a gathering that would allow her friends to see the truth behind her deep bond with Charlie. However, as she stepped into the schoolyard, her heart fluttered nervously. It was then that she spotted Marcus sitting on the steps, and her chest tightened again. But this time, something was different. Clara focused on the stone nestled in her pocket, and she remembered the healing power of hope that she had unearthed. "Hi, Marcus," she greeted, striving for sincerity. "Hey, Clara," he replied, seemingly taken aback by her uncharacteristic approach. "I was wondering if you and the others would be interested in joining me for a picnic at the park this weekend," Clara offered. "Charlie will be there, and I think it could be fun for everyone to get together. Give him a chance." Marcus squinted slightly, considering her words. Clara held her breath, hoping that this moment could reforge their connection. "You really think he's that special?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability peeking through the bravado. "He is special," Clara said, her voice steady. "You just have to let him show you." As silence hung between them, Clara's heart fought through the doubt, and she could feel the strain of their past conversations begin to soften under the warm sun. "I'll tell the others," Marcus finally replied, shrugging as if he were making a casual suggestion. "Count me in." With that simple acknowledgement, Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. Perhaps there was hope yet for a new beginning. When Clara returned home that evening, she found herself imbued with a contagious energy, grateful for the healing touch of hope, the painted stone in her pocket a reminder that marked a turning point. With Charlie by her side, she felt the tension in her heart begin to dissipate. The events of the festival lightened, giving way to the blossoming possibilities of what lay ahead, a heartfelt picnic where laughter could drown out the whispers. And as the evening sky unfurled an array of colors at sunset, Clara believed that change was well underway. It was a journey toward healing connections and nurturing bonds, a reminder that, even in uncertainty, it was always possible to hope for brighter days ahead. Facing the storm. The air grew thick with tension as Clara and Charlie prepared for the picnic. Clara had spent days organizing the event in hopes of bringing everyone together, including her skeptical friends. She wanted to show them Charlie's joy and the love they shared, which she believed could heal the rift of misunderstanding. Yet, as the day approached, Clara felt an unsettling knot in her stomach. The day of the picnic dawned bright, but a strange unease clouded Clara's excitement. She set up blankets and baskets in the park, her usual enthusiasm waning under the weight of expectation. The sun shone overhead, casting a golden hue across the field, but dark clouds slithered ominously on the horizon. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. "Come on, Charlie," she murmured, forcing a smile as Charlie bounded alongside her, oblivious to her inner turmoil. Crickets chirped in the grass, and the air buzzed with anticipation as the small group of children began to arrive. Clara greeted each one with warmth, hoping her friendliness would sway even the most skeptical. Soon, she spotted Marcus entering the park, his shoulders slouched as he trailed behind a few of his friends. Clara's heart fluttered with apprehension. Would he bring with him the laughter and camaraderie she wanted, or the judgment and doubt that had plagued her before? "Hey, Clara," Marcus called, a hint of awkwardness in his voice as he joined her under the shade of a large oak tree. "Is this the place?" He looked around, indifference lurking behind his feigned interest. "Yep, over here," Clara replied, forcing cheer into her voice as she pointed toward the picnic blankets. "Charlie's gonna show everyone just how amazing he is." As the minutes ticked by, the park began to fill with children, laughter echoing like melodic bells in Clara's ears. She guided them in games, tug-of-war, relay races, and a lot of catch with Charlie leading the charge. He bounded through the grass, delighting the children with every leap, and for the first time, Clara felt the shadows of doubt start to lift. But as the sky grew dimmer, a chilling wind swept through the park, whipping leaves into a frenzy. Clara glanced toward the horizon with a frown, noting that the dark clouds had begun to roll in. A voice in her head warned her of an approaching storm, and Clara's optimistic heart sank. "Oh," one of the girls squealed, pointing toward the unsettling dark clouds. "It looks like it might rain." "It's just a bit of wind," Clara reassured everyone, forcing a bright smile that faded as Marcus looked uneasy. "Let's keep playing." As they continued to revel in games, the wind howled louder, thickening the air with anticipation. Clara shoved aside her worry, pushing the weight of it down. This was their day. Charlie was shining, and nothing would take that from them. Yet, minutes later, the sky darkened further, unleashing the first droplets of rain. It started with a gentle patter before rapidly escalating into a downpour, soaking the picnic area almost instantly. "Come on everyone," in the tent, Clara shouted, her voice barely reaching over the rising chaos. As gazes darted toward her, confusion forwarded like wildfire. Clara led the children towards the nearest gazebos, the frenzied activity making her heart race. As they huddled together under the shelter, Clara's composure faltered. The thunder rumbled ominously, and the rain crashed against the roof like a battalion of drums. She watched as the children's expressions twisted with worry and fear, echoing the storm brewing within her own heart. Marcus' face reflected uncertainty, and Clara could sense the tension coiling tighter around them. "What now?" he asked, glancing around the circle of frightened faces and undoubtedly feeling the pressure building. "We can still have fun," Clara insisted, her voice strained yet resolute. She pulled out board games and snack bags with a forced smile. "Let's let Charlie entertain us." With that, she called Charlie's name as he shook off the rain and bounded forward, wagging his tail and drawing laughter from the children, but Clara struggled to keep the mood elevated. As she joined in the laughter, Clara's heart felt heavy. What had started as a day of promise felt like a ruin, and she couldn't shake the sense of impending doom. Charlie sensed her distress, resting his head against her knee, lending the healing touch that had always soothed her bruised spirit. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder shook the ground beneath them, and startled gasps echoed in the shelter. Clara's heart raced, fear taking hold. She glanced at Marcus, whose expression mirrored the confusion swirling within her. She had hoped this day would prove her devotion to Charlie, yet the storm had torn through their plans and left only chaos. "Why are you friends with a stray?" Marcus burst out, voice tinged with frustration. "What if something happens? He could be dangerous." The words fell like lead weights into the air, cutting through Clara like a bolt of lightning. "He's not dangerous," she replied defensively. "He's the best friend I've ever had." "But how do you know?" Marcus pressed, challenging her resolution. "He could have all sorts of issues. What if he turns on us?" The children turned to Clara, eyes wide with uncertainty, nibbling nervously on their snacks. Maybe we should just. Clara felt overwhelmed by Marcus's challenges. She scanned the faces of her friends, longing for their understanding. The weight of their uncertainty crashed over her like the storm outside, sparking a flash of doubt in her heart. Come on, Clara, we've seen the stories, Marcus continued, voice low, stirring fear. You may trust him, but we don't know what he's been through. Trust? Clara echoed, trying to bring the laughter back. You're saying that just because he's a dog? What about me? I'm still your friend. I don't get this, Marcus exclaimed again, frustration pouring forth. I don't understand how you can put a stray ahead of your friends. Clara felt her heart crack at his words, the storm outside indicative of the turmoil within. Charlie isn't just any dog to me, she said, her voice trembling but firm. He's brought joy to my life in the darkest times. Why can't he do the same for you? Suddenly, she felt a wave of despair, each word puncturing the heart of her hope. She had opened her soul for Charlie, risking everything to bring her friends together. But in that moment, the shadows fell again, as if the storm were reflecting her broken spirit. I don't want to fight, she pleaded, the words tumbling from her lips. I just want you all to understand how important he is to me. Their gazes lingered in uncertainty, but slowly Clara noticed a shift. The children regarded Charlie, reassessing the bond with their vibrant, loyal friend. Amidst the growing storm, Clara realized they were all weathering their own chaos, each harboring a shadow of doubt. If she didn't face the storm, it would surge through the rest of their connections. Taking a deep breath, Clara steeled her heart to confront the uncertainty. Imagine how afraid Charlie must feel right now, she said softly, her voice cutting through the storm. He doesn't know why you're scared of him, but he just wants to be my friend. Can you try to look past his past and see what he's showing you in this moment? As she locked eyes with each child, she felt a flicker of understanding start to spark. The clouds that had brewed chaos began to feel lighter, as if shifting to a gentle mist instead. The storm outside continued to rage, but Clara realized it bestowed a healing warmth on their hearts. The gathering of hearts. The day of the picnic had come, a moment Clara had both awaited and feared. After the storm of doubt and indecision that loomed over their last gathering, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The date had been set, and with it came a nervous energy that crackled in the summer air. This was not only a chance to bring her friends together, but also an opportunity to showcase the unbreakable bond she shared with Charlie. Clara rose early that morning, her heart racing with anticipation. She spent the morning preparing as if she were an artist skillfully crafting a masterpiece. Each detail mattered. She arranged brightly colored blankets, packed fresh sandwiches, and filled baskets with fruits bursting with summer sweetness. Charlie danced around her feet, mirroring her enthusiasm, his tail wagging like a flag of friendship. As Clara gathered the last of the supplies, her thoughts drifted to the uncertainty that had bubbled during the previous picnic. What if today was the same? What if Marcus and the others held onto their doubts? Would her heart be shattered once again? She took a deep breath, gripping the charm stone she had discovered weeks earlier. Hope, she reminded herself. Today is about joy and togetherness, she whispered to Charlie, who barked in agreement. With the sun shining brightly, Clara set off to the park, the gentle rustle of the wind guiding her toward their meeting point. When she arrived, she was met with a delightful sight. Families had already begun to settle along the picnic tables, the air filled with the mouth-watering aroma of grilled foods and laughter. As she laid out the blankets, she noticed familiar faces drawing closer, her friends, apprehension dancing behind their smiles. Clara's heart beat quickly, but she forced herself to keep her expression open and inviting. Welcome. I'm so glad you all came. Clara called cheerfully, her voice loud to mask the trembling excitement within. She spotted Marcus approaching tentatively with a few others. Are you ready to have some fun? Yeah. Let's see this famous dog of yours. Marcus teased lightly, though Clara sensed the lingering uncertainty behind his bravado. Charlie's ready to amaze. Clara replied, and just as she said it, Charlie bounded forward, tail wagging, enthusiasm palpable. As the afternoon unfolded, they played games. Clara encouraged Charlie to engage in fetch and agility training, showcasing the talents she had worked hard to perfect with him. The laughter soon filled the air as the children joined in, drawing in one another. Their defenses, as fragile as cobwebs, began to dissolve in the warmth of the sunshine. The tide of connection turned as Clara noticed her friends slowly relinquishing their hesitations. Marcus, whom Clara had feared would ruin the day, even joined in on a barking contest, and laughter erupted like fireworks as they all participated. Charlie leaped and bounded, a natural performer at the center of attention, relishing the joy around him. Clara's heart soared as she watched her friends engage, slowly finding common ground in the shared laughter and lightness of the day. But in the back of her mind, deep-rooted worries lingered, a fear of the inevitable exposure to Charlie's past. However, with each smile, her belief in the power of connection grew stronger. She caught snippets of side conversations, hushed and warm, about how remarkable Charlie was. After an hour of games and snacks, Clara decided it was time for a grand finale to solidify the newfound friendship. "All right, everyone. Gather around. This is Charlie's big moment," she called, an eager bounce in her step. Carefully, she led Charlie to the center of a grassy clearing, positioning him just right for her impromptu performance. "Charlie, show them the high jump," Clara instructed, kneeling beside him like a coach ready for a big match. With determination bright in her eyes, Clara threw a frisbee far into the air. Charlie watched it soar, then sprang into action, leaping high above the ground. Gasps surged through the crowd as he caught the frisbee mid-air, a triumphant bark escaping his lips. Cheers erupted from her friends, a tidal wave of enthusiasm that surrounded them all. "See? He's not just any dog," Clara declared with infectious excitement, her spirit ignited by the applause and laughter of her friends. "He's extraordinary." Moments like this, Clara knew, were where connections blossomed. The rhythm of laughter and clapping filled the park, weaving through the warm, summer air, wrapping around Clara's heart like a gentle hug. As they continued to play and enjoy the afternoon, Clara saw the awakening in Marcus's eyes. A realization that perhaps Charlie had more to offer than what their previous fears had led them to believe. She felt the barriers falling as children ran around, playing more freely, opening their hearts in playing and laughter. "Can we throw the frisbee again?" Marcus asked, a genuine request instead of a taunt. Clara smirked, her heart swelling with hope. "Absolutely. The more, the merrier." The park became a sanctuary, filled with playful camaraderie, and Clara embraced the feeling that their hearts were genuinely gathering. With every retrieved frisbee and high jump, Clara sensed they were forging connections as genuine as the roots of the old oak tree she loved so dearly. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting it in hues of orange and purple, Clara looked around at the harmonious gathering, a tapestry of intertwined lives woven together with friendship, laughter, and a newfound understanding. The picnic felt like a festival of rebirth. Clara could see it. Charlie, just by being himself, had brought everyone closer. When the laughter began to soften and the games began to wind down, Clara gathered everyone under the branches of a robust tree, Charlie nestled at her feet. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice steady yet filled with warmth. "Today means so much to me, and it's all thanks to Charlie. I want us to remember this bond we're building and to keep it growing stronger." With the sounds of crickets chirping and the cool breeze lifting through the air, Clara breathed a sigh of relief. The storm that had shadowed their earlier encounters had finally dissipated, leaving only vibrant skies ahead. As Clara glanced down at Charlie, his gentle eyes reflecting the depth of understanding, she felt the power of love and friendship radiate around them like sunlight breaking through the clouds. The gathering of hearts was only just beginning, and Clara knew she would cherish this day forever, for it held a promise that love could conquer the deepest fears, lighting the way toward a brighter future filled with unfettered joy. Unraveling truths. The aftermath of the picnic was brimming with warmth and laughter, the endless echoes of joy marking the day in Clara's heart. It was a beautiful transformation for her friendships. The shadows of doubt had been lifted, and everyone celebrated Charlie's presence with a newfound affection. But just as the clouds of uncertainty parted, the winds of curiosity began to stir within Clara, beckoning her toward the truth about Charlie's past. Days drifted by in a comforting rhythm, but Clara couldn't shake her longing to understand the mysteries that surrounded Charlie. While she had forged connections with her friends, a gnawing sense of resolution grew within her. She needed to know where Charlie had come from and what secrets lay beneath his scruffy coat. One crisp morning, Clara resolved to take action. She sought out Edie, hoping her grandmother, who knew so much about the village, could shed light on Charlie's hidden history. After a hearty breakfast, Clara rushed to Edie's cozy cottage, Charlie following eagerly by her side. "Good morning, my little sunshine," Edie greeted, her eyes sparkling as Clara entered. "And look who's come along. Has Charlie been keeping you out of trouble?" "He's been amazing, Edie," Clara replied, her excitement palpable. "But I need to know more about him. I want to find out about his past. Can you help me?" Edie's expression shifted as she regarded Charlie, a thoughtful look crossing her face. "Well, sweetheart, there are stories that linger in the village. Not all of them are pleasant, I'm afraid." Clara felt a thrill of anticipation and concern swirl in her belly. "What do you know?" Edie led them to her sitting room, where she settled into a comfortable chair and gestured for Clara to join her on the floor beside Charlie. "You see, Charlie came from a different life before he found his way to you," Edie began gently, her voice laced with care. "He belonged to an old man named Mr. Grayson, who was known for his mean temperament and cruel ways." Clara's heart sank. The picture Edie painted confronted her with the reality she had worried about. "But what happened to him? Why did he end up as a stray?" she pressed, noticing Charlie's ears perk up as if he had heard the name. "Mr. Grayson grew ill many years ago," Edie continued, her tone softened with compassion. "In his carelessness, he neglected Charlie. One day, during a storm similar to the one you first found him, Charlie fled the house, and Mr. Grayson never bothered to look for him. He was abandoned." Clara's eyes widened, her heart aching for the dog she loved. "That's so sad. He must have been so scared." She wrapped her arms tightly around Charlie, who nuzzled against her comfortingly. "Indeed, my dear," Edie said, her voice firm yet gentle. "Charlie's past has shaped him. He witnessed fear and neglect. Sometimes, that takes time to fade. For him to trust again, to know that he has a home, takes patience and love, something you have been giving him in abundance." Clara absorbed Edie's words, realizing how deeply Charlie must have endured hurt and confusion. "I'll make sure he knows he's safe with me, Edie," she promised, her resolve hardening. "But what can I do to help him forget?" Edie smiled, and Clara caught a glimmer of pride in her eyes. "Continue to give him the love you have shown, Clara. Create joyful memories together. Help him to trust again by embracing every moment, even the smallest ones. Make it clear he belongs with you." A sense of reassurance washed over Clara. She felt invigorated to apply every ounce of love she could for Charlie. But a more profound question loomed in her mind, one that she had almost forgotten through the chaos of change. "But what about Mr. Grayson? Is he still living nearby?" she asked, curiosity piqued. Edie nodded gravely. "He is, though he has distanced himself from the community. People speak of him in quiet whispers. It's best you avoid him for now. Not even his own dog was worth his concerns." A frown creased Clara's brow. The thought of Charlie's former owner left a sour taste in her mouth. Yet the curiosity to understand more about Charlie heightened her determination. "I think I want to see Mr. Grayson," she declared, surprising both Edie and herself. "Clara," Edie exclaimed, a touch of alarm in her voice. "You must be careful. He is not the kind of man you want to approach lightly. His sorrows run deep, and bitterness roams within him. It may only complicate matters for Charlie's." "I understand that," Clara replied quietly. "But I need to know why Charlie came to me. I want to understand his past so I can help him heal. Maybe everything he has been through is a part of his journey." With a long sigh, Edie leaned back in her chair. "You are a bright light, my dear. If you truly feel led to approach Mr. Grayson, perhaps it is an avenue worth exploring. Just remember that truth can sometimes come with pains." Clara smiled, a spark of hope igniting within her. She knew the conversation with Mr. Grayson wouldn't be easy, but understanding Charlie's journey would only help her create a safer space for him to flourish. As they wrapped up their discussion, Clara made a plan to visit Mr. Grayson the following day. She steeled herself with love for Charlie, knowing he was counting on her, and she would do everything in her power to unravel the truths of their intertwined paths. With Charlie safe beside her, Clara felt buoyed by a sense of purpose. In that moment, she recognized that love could transcend darkness, not just for her and Charlie, but perhaps even for a lonely man whose bitterness had kept his heart shuttered from affection. Clara was determined to foster healing. For Charlie, for herself, and perhaps, even for Mr. Grayson. A new beginning. The air was crisp and fragrant as Clara and Charlie made their way to Mr. Grayson's house the following afternoon. Clara felt a mixture of trepidation and determination swirling within her. She understood that seeking the truth could lead to clarity not just for Charlie, but also for the bitter man whose past influenced their lives. Charlie walked beside her, mindful and alert, as if he sensed the significance of this moment. The sky above was a brilliant blue, the sun casting its warm glow along their path. Clara took a deep breath, recalling Edie's words from their earlier conversation. Truth could be painful, but it was also an avenue for healing. As they approached the small, weathered house at the end of a quiet lane, Clara's pulse quickened. The wooden shack stood in stark contrast to the cheerful homes nearby. It looked as if it had once witnessed wonderful memories but now appeared hollow, shadows clinging to the corners like ghosts trapped in sorrow. "Are you ready, buddy?" Clara asked Charlie softly, patting his back for reassurance. He responded with a gentle wag, his trusting presence fueling her resolve. Clara raised her hand and knocked on the door. The sound echoed hollowly in the stillness, and she immediately regretted her eagerness as a wave of doubt washed over her. What if Mr. Grayson didn't want to talk? What if he was as cold and unyielding as Clara had imagined? Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a man whose presence seemed as shrunken and weary as the house behind him. Mr. Grayson's eyes were dark, lined with weariness and a past that Clara couldn't quite place. He squinted at her, confusion flickering in his gaze. "What do you want?" he rasped, each word permeated with caution. "Hello, Mr. Grayson," Clara said, her voice steady despite her heartbeat thrumming in her chest. "My name is Clara Bennett, and this is Charlie." She gestured to Charlie, who stood at her side, keen and alert. "I wanted to talk to you about him." The man regarded her for a moment longer, uncertainty playing across his face. It took him a moment to connect the dots. "That mutt," he grumbled, as if the mere mention of Charlie stirred something within him. "He got away from me." "Yes, he did. But he's safe now. He's been with me for some time." Clara forced her voice to remain calm. "He's learned to trust again, and he's become my best friend." Mr. Grayson shifted his weight, a flicker of something, curiosity or perhaps regret, flaring in his dark eyes. "Animals have a way of following their instincts," he murmured, disdain mingling with something almost like nostalgia. Clara took it as an opportunity to push forward. "I want to understand where he came from," she continued gently. "Charlie deserves to feel safe and loved, but I know he had a past that shaped him. I think it's important that I know it, too." Mr. Grayson's expression hardened, and Clara braced for a defense, yet the lines of his face softened slightly. "You think it'll help him, eh?" His voice held a hint of sarcasm. "I do," Clara insisted. "I believe that understanding can change hearts, both his and yours." The silence hung heavily between them as Mr. Grayson's gaze flickered over to Charlie, who stood unwavering beside Clara, a look of eager trust in his eyes. Memories surfacing, the man's hardened demeanor began to fray. "There was a time. I used to care for him," he finally admitted, his tone softened, revealing an echo of loss. "But then things got difficult. I let myself," he paused, lifting his gaze to meet Clara's. "I lost control." Clara chose her words carefully. "People make mistakes, Mr. Grayson. But that doesn't mean we can't turn things around. I want to help Charlie, but I also think you could make a change too." He sighed, collapsing onto the creaky porch. The weight of burdens long carried weighed heavily on his shoulders. Clara felt an unexpected wave of compassion wash over her. "I didn't want to be that man," he confessed, his voice cracking beneath the strain. "I didn't want to be someone who lost everything, including my dog." "I believe people can find their way back," Clara replied, a flicker of hope igniting. "Sometimes, love can be the guide." A sense of understanding bloomed quietly within the space between them, a fragile connection budding amid the remains of the past. Clara took a step closer, kneeling beside Mr. Grayson, presenting the charm stone that had held her heart through these trials. "This is a stone I found in the woods. The word on it is hope. It's a reminder to hold onto the possibility of healing. Slowly, Mr. Grayson's hand reached out, fingers hovering over the stone. Clara could see the hesitation in his eyes, a man wrestling with memories he had meant to bury. But finally he took the charm, feeling its cool surface against his palm. Hope. It's something I've lost, he admitted, his voice wavering. But perhaps it's time to try again. Clara felt the exhilaration of that moment as if a curtain had lifted, revealing the light of potential. There's still time for all of us, she said softly, to forgive ourselves and rebuild. The sound of Charlie sighing gently behind them brought a sense of peace to the conversation. As Clara looked at Charlie, her heart brimmed with love for the dog who had brought them together in such an unexpected way. Mr. Grayson finally raised his eyes again, this time searching Clara's earnest gaze. You're right. I need to start living instead of hiding. A smile broke across Clara's face, a beacon of genuine joy. You can start with Charlie. He'd love to see you again. They spoke for a little while longer, sharing stories of Charlie's antics and how he blossomed with Clara. The conversation felt like a stitch carefully mending a torn fabric, weaving together not only their lives but possibly a renewed connection for Charlie and his once-absent owner. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mr. Grayson stood up slowly, determination stitched to his brow. I'll try. I'll find a way to be better, for him and for myself. Clara's heart soared. That's all anyone can ask for. A new beginning. She took Charlie's leash, feeling empowered, knowing healing awaited for them all, just like the promise rising within the dawn. Together, Clara, Charlie, and Mr. Grayson stood united at the edge of a fresh start, hearts intertwined in a journey of hope, healing, and newfound friendship. In that moment, Clara embraced the truth that change began with a single step and an open heart, an enduring testament to the love they could share for one another.